Hey everyone, happy Thursday. It is October 26th. Can't say the time because we're all in different parts of the world. We're about to start the SKALE Community Engineering Update. For those of the new listeners tuning in, SKALE is the only blockchain network capable of running an unlimited number of fast, on-demand, pooled security blockchains with zero gas fees to end users. That's right, zero gas fees to end users. SKALE Network has had a lot of exciting milestones this past year, just in this past quarter as well. Just this morning, we saw that Allfax Crypto reported SKALE was found to be the most efficient blockchain due to its 397.7 TPS. I'll have the engineers explain what these TPS mean as we move along. It's also important to mention that SKALE is a fully decentralized open source project that's driven and owned by our incredible community. And that gives us a great start to introduce you guys to some of the amazing devs from the SKALE community. But first, I want to pass it to the awesome founder, Stan, for an intro.
Yeah, guys, so welcome back to our AMA. As you see, we are trying to make our AMAs less boring, to change the view a little bit. This time, we're actually broadcasting live from SKALE office in Lisbon. So this is our conference room. I hope you guys see the coffee machine on the back. So we're trying to improve communication with our community members. Some of you guys follow us on Twitter. We are trying to do engineering updates every 2 weeks. If you don't know about this, please join our Twitter. We're talking about things our engineers are doing, our community members are doing, open source code, the progress we have, also trying to post different photos and news and things just to give more fun to our community members. And this is going to continue, and this AMA also part of this kind of the effort to actually be closer to you guys, to our community members. You probably know me, and you probably also know now, by now you know Dima, T3, you know that we have 4 Dimas in SKALE engineering community, and this is the third one, and Artem. And Artem is doing a lot of things within the SKALE community, helping our projects to be successful with things like solidity and UIs and just advice architecture. You know, many people know him. And Dima is working on things like, you know, planning releases and scheduling our engineering things, coordinating things, you know, many things in engineering. And I hope that you will have a chance to know the both today better during the AMA. Yeah, so maybe that's a good introduction, and I'll pass it back to Zahraa so we can continue with the AMA.
That's awesome. Artem and Dima, did you guys want to give your intros, or was Stan's all good?
Yeah, it was actually awesome intro.
Yeah.
My name is Artem. I'm head of developer success team at SKALE, and with SKALE from the founding of SKALE by Stan and Jack. Yeah, and happy to talk to you.
Yeah, just what can I add to Stan's word? I'm with SKALE from it started from the beginning, from 2018. I know these guys from the start, and it's really awesome to know them and to work with such a great project.
That's awesome. Well, you guys are certainly so humble. If I had half the talents and brains of the SKALE dev community, I'd be shouting it from the rooftops. So super excited. I mean, let's go on and jump in. So Stan, I know you're always super psyched about all the upcoming features and new releases that the dev community is working on. Which ones are you specifically most excited about and you think the community would enjoy hearing about?
Yeah, yes, thank you for the question, Zahraa. I will start saying that, you know, SKALE, when we started SKALE, from the beginning, SKALE was meant to be a high-performance blockchain. And that's why from the beginning we used C++, really high-performance language. Other people use Go, which is way less performant. So we used C++, and lots of work actually went into making things fast and high-performant. And that actually means also zero transaction fees, because to be able to charge zero for transactions, you need to be able to have lots and lots of transactions. So Scale was always about this high performance blockchain, being able to run many transactions on a single chain, also being able to run a chain in a very constrained environment of low memory, low CPU, and also to be able to run many chains. So we were approaching high performance from different sides. You can add more transactions to a single chain. You can have a chain running on less performant hardware or virtual machines, and you can also have many chains. But then you also need to have interactions between chains, token transfers, messaging, all of the things got implemented. And I think when Scale got released, we were a little bit like in front of time, in a sense that the apps at that time didn't need all of this so much, because there were not so many high performance apps. And then the crypto winter happened, as probably you guys know. And then we kind of now have this kind of a crypto spring where we have many apps now coming to Scale, and they do need to have lots of transactions, which is great because they only can need lots of transactions if they have lots of users, right? So we're seeing this really, I think, optimistic scenario where we actually see growth in the number of transactions. We posted on Twitter, number of wallets, number of users. We do see this new thing coming where lots of people are starting to use blockchain, and they come to Scale, definitely because Scale has lots of performance. So suddenly we see these things happening, and suddenly we see our chains being loaded, and there's more and more transactions. So one thing which is kind of like really mundane but super important, as we have higher load on our chains, even subtle bugs they start demonstrating themselves, right? And because of that, we really put lots of attention into bugs, because if something bad happens, we don't want our chains to crash. And if you look at Scale, actually, what's interesting is that other projects, you have projects like, I won't name them, but they crash from time to time. And you see that in the news, and these guys usually just have a single chain, and still they crash. Scale runs many chains, and all of them run pretty much without too much of our supervision. So the stability of our code base is pretty high, I think, in the sense that our things do run without our supervision. We don't wake up in the morning and start tweaking our chains, because there are too many of them. So one thing which we keep on working on is stability and memory, and doing small things, just making sure that our thing is very stable and very secure. So part of the new release and all of the pretty much further releases is going to be just improvements in stability and security and performance. So we're doing lots of things like that. But we also, because people are starting to use things a lot, we pay attention to user interfaces, to UIs. And lots of work also nowadays is happening on Scale UIs. In particular, when people come, they want to transfer tokens, they want to configure Scale, they want to run a chain. Everything in the UI sphere is also super important for us, because people start to use it, and they keep on communicating to us. Okay, we don't understand this, we don't understand that. This button doesn't work well. This type of things. And we put lots of attention in polishing our UIs, and we have meetings where we're trying to simplify things and make them essentially minimalistic, decrease the number of buttons and links and whatever, because the perfect UI is a very simple UI. So we're putting lots of emphasis into simplicity of our UIs. And so we have now released 2.2. For 2.3, lots of things are planned in terms of performance and stability. We also are going to do lots of improvements to node rotation. You probably know that Scale has this capability where our chains are not static. You can add and remove nodes from our chains, and it actually improves security, because users can, a particular node can be compromised or bribed or whatever. And if you can replace it with a different random node, then you improve security because the attacker doesn't know which particular node to attack. Right? So we have this thing which is called node rotation. And now, since we have lots of chains, node rotation becomes really important. So the actual topic for release 2.3 is node rotation, and we have lots of small bugs scheduled for this release, in addition to, as I said, performance and stability improvements. And there's another thing which is also important for us, is our customers. We collect essentially small things that customers ask us about, and the particular feature may be small, but actually may create lots of pain for the customer. For example, customers want all of the Ethereum operations and instructions to be implemented. There's this new instruction which just released in Ethereum mainnet, which is called push 0, but we do need to add this instruction because we want to have this full compliance with Ethereum. Compliance is actually a dynamic thing because Ethereum is actually moving and changing, so we need to change. Right? So we have this push 0, we have things like chain ID, other instructions. We have different corner cases which are important to people, like people want to be able to deploy smart contracts in different ways, also different complex ways of permissions. Can I deploy a smart contract? Can my smart contract deploy another smart contract? All kinds of things like that. So to finish up with this, I want to say that the important thing for every startup is once a startup finds a product market fit, your features are dictated by your customers. And we are trying to actually have this customer-based priority that every startup or every project is necessarily a startup. You have to listen to your customers. And in addition to that, we also have ZK. So we are working on zero knowledge proofs because they are really important. So basically, we are super busy here in Lisbon and other parts. We have people in Lisbon, we have people all over the world, actually. Some people in Ukraine, some people in Poland, in the US, many places.
Wow, that's a lot. So for those of you who might have lost track of all these awesome updates, they will be mentioned again by different devs throughout the AMA. I mean, that's amazing, Stan. So it sounds like if you thought Scale was highly effective for building and scaling Ethereum-based apps, just wait for these updates because it's getting even better. So we know that Scale is becoming the premier choice blockchain for gaming and high transaction dApps. We've seen an exponential growth this past year. Its architecture is very attractive to developers, simply put, like the zero gas fees to end users and the high TPS are just some of the things that are causing more people in the dev community to, migrate over to Scale. Artem, this question is for you. How are Scale devs supported to deploy dApps on the network? Once they find out about Scale and they're like, okay, this is something that we definitely need to utilize, where do you come in to make sure that these devs are supported?
Oh yeah, for sure. Devs, we are working with the community pretty close. We have different Discord chats, and that's really easy to come to any kind of communication source and ask okay, yeah, we're gonna do it. And we already have different testnets and mainnet, and as a Scale by architecture is multi-chain. Developers wanted to build on different chains, and to deploy on different chains, they needed to go and connect into this DAOs, which is operating these chains like Calypso, Europa, Nebula, and games are introduced into this DAOs, which are running this chains, and pretty freely can deploy the devs.
Okay, awesome. We have a amazing dev from Untitled Platformer. I know a lot of you have played it. Currently, Untitled Platformer has 30,000 daily active wallets. And to go on from what Artem is saying, Reinhardt, How did Scale's architecture allow you to find success? And what was the experience like working with the dev community to get your game to go live?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just for those that don't know me, my name is or Reinhardt. I'm the founder and developer of Untitled. Quite funny. I always mention this, but it's funny seeing how a sandbox built for testing ended up becoming a production game and somehow found its way to success on chain. So it's really great. I would say the biggest thing that drove me to build on Scale was the gas list. I mean, no surprise there. It's probably one of the biggest pain points in blockchain gaming at the moment. And there's kind of no reason to really, put that under the rug because it prevents us from doing so many creative things within our dApps, within our games. And if you think about traditional game development, it's not something you see in any case, really. So it makes sense to completely eliminate that factor, as it just greatly helps with onboarding new players. The experience with the developers themselves and the community here was really good. To be honest, if it wasn't for Sawyer pushing me consistently improving and creating new systems, the game would not be where it is today. It was through his amazing leadership and guidance that the game has mechanics that it has today. And it has the amazing onboarding that it has today, especially on Untitled Mobile, where it's practically invisible and you wouldn't even know you're playing a blockchain game.
Interesting. I'm glad you put Sawyer on the spot because the next question goes right to you. I've been hearing the buzz from the dev community about an Untitled plus Unity SDK. I know you two have been working really close together on this. So how did you guys come together to create the Unity SDK? But also more simply, what is an SDK?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll kick off mine as well. Just a super quick intro. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Sawyer. You might often see me as the Great Axios throughout the various channels. So I'm a Scale open source community developer. So I work with projects all throughout the community as well as build my own software through dirt road development. Thanks for having me here today. I'll start off with the what is an SDK, since I think that's a pretty quick one to hit. So an SDK is effectively a software development kit. For those of you that don't know what those words mean, all good. It's basically code or pre-built tools that let you do something faster. So with the goal of not reinventing the wheel every time. As for this Unity SDK that you've been hearing a lot of buzz about, I think Reinhardt already answered maybe half of this, which is I was super fortunate to get introduced to him and help him kind of just really take advantage of the Scale architecture. It really is unique and innovative in a way that people can do things they just can't do elsewhere. And so we were working closely for a number of months before Untitled went live to just kind of take those limitations of blockchain and pull them out one by one. Once Untitled actually went live, it kind of turned into this, everybody wanted to know how he did it. And so we had a lot of conversations with other developers and other projects throughout the community, and the same answer kept coming up, which is make things invisible, right? And what does that mean? The answer is use these specific snippets of code or different practices to get this same end result. And so we kind of put our heads together one day, and he said, "Hey, I've been kind of hacking away on this SDK," and I said, I've got a pretty good platform through Dirt Road Development. I've got a lot of people already using my tooling. I have some ideas that maybe could help you take this to the next level. What do you say we put our heads together and build something that can really change the face of how people want to, build and push out blockchain gaming? And proud to announce that the Eidolon SDK, which is the name of it, went into alpha this past week. And so I'll kick it over to Reinhardt to kind of give an overview about the components he took from Untitled and the visions and the ideas and how he kind of put that into that SDK.
Reinhardt, you're muted.
So sorry, guys. Sorry. I was just cracking up. It's so cool, like having someone else talk about it and kind of just listening about all the work that's gone into it. Coming into fruition with the alpha earlier this week. I've been practicing pronunciation of that word for at least the last 7 hours, and I just can't fully get it. I think it's Eidolon or Eidolon. But essentially, what it is, it's kind of the culmination of what is Untitled. You know, the goal behind Untitled when I developed it wasn't just that it's going to be a game. There was always going to be a greater purpose behind it. And essentially, once Untitled gained all the traction, and I kind of got the metrics for what makes it so successful, I found that people just like being able to hop on and play, and there's no barriers or there's no commitments. There's nothing really stopping you from just actually genuinely hopping on and playing within the time frame of maybe 30 seconds. You know, going from loading to in-game. And so I was kind of just trying to find a way, how can I kind of scale that in a way where I can provide game developers the same tooling that I used to get a similar experience, or to give them the edge in the same way that Untitled has. And I definitely found with Scale being gasless, you could create a whole bunch of cool mechanics, especially when it comes to handling player accounts, to make it as seamless as possible. And so Idlen at its core is essentially, I want to say it's quite a universal tool. So it's quite a universal SDK within Unity. So you can do your traditional blockchain stuff on it. So interact with different EIP standards, do custom smart contract calls and reads and all that kind of stuff. But then we also heavily built it towards Scale, because you can do stuff on Scale that you can't normally do on other blockchains. So for instance, we've got real custom signer classes, which helps with account management. So we really take advantage of device-specific key stores here to make sure that developers can manage their player accounts and create those real invisible experiences for people when they use their games, so that there's less and less friction. On top of that, though, we are working on WebGL on top of mobile and desktop support. But I do believe that Island will really shine when it comes to mobile game development, which is where majority of the market probably is at the moment. I'm not too sure. I'm really hoping Google will, just announce their NFT policy so that we can start building on phone platforms full time. But all in all, I definitely think if you're a game developer building for the blockchain, especially on Scale, Island's got everything that you need to not only help you build a game, but to build better faster. You'll get a much better experience out of your game through our SDK than you would find on a traditional SDK on the market.
Interesting. So essentially, Sawyer, you've created a super duper toolbox for game developers. Reinhardt then took this magical toolbox to allow Untitled to get to the next level. So I'm imagining it as like sand on the beach, trying to build a sandcastle and having all the proper tools to build like the most gnarly one.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example. I would say it's almost like when you go to the beach and you want to build a sandcastle and you realize you forgot your bucket and your pail at home. In this case, you go to the beach and there's an area designated with the bucket and the pail. It just has everything you need to quickly build a sandcastle. That's kind of the ideology behind it, is how can you go from zero to having a full blockchain game built as quickly as possible with the least amount of developer friction as possible.
Yep.
Very exciting. Go ahead.
So just heavily focusing on developer experience. That's the key word with the SDK is developer experience.
Okay, got it. Learning a lot here, and I hope the 115 listeners joining us now are learning as much as I am. Moving on from gaming, rumor has it that SKALE Network is taking big leaps in ZK with something called levitation protocol. I know Stan is about to jump out of his seat talking about levitation, because it is really exciting. I know it's an effort to further the innovation and breadth of the SKALE Network. The amazing community of developers are pushing forth an open source effort that'll allow Scale an opportunity to have like a flexible and configurable suite of ZK scaling solutions. So just really high level, what is levitation protocol?
Yeah, that's a great question, Zahraa. I think, we're trying to, probably many people know that there is this great mathematics called zero-knowledge proofs, and there's lots of activity now, projects developing tools and libraries, different flavors of zero-knowledge proofs. But just to make it really a short summary, you can say that it's kind of lots of number crunching and pretty heavy mathematics and heavy computational resources that you need to do these proofs. But then what you get, you can post the proofs on Ethereum mainnet, and then whatever you do, it becomes also ingrained and verified by Ethereum mainnet. So if you have a scale chain, right, Scale is trying to be as secure and solid as possible, but having that, Ethereum has so much capital and stake and everything. Ethereum mainnet is super secure. It's only, but it's really slow. So you have this. Basically, you need to have this kind of a slider where something needs to go to Ethereum mainnet, something needs to stay on Scale. I think what we learned over the last 6 months, there was this kind of first generation of ZK projects that kind of tried to be really puristic and post everything on Ethereum mainnet, and this didn't specifically do so well. We don't see these projects growing so much. We don't see so much overuse, even though like some of them have been in existence for like 6+ months now, their networks. So then the question becomes essentially, how you can use ZK in some kind of a balanced way. And the balanced way means that you need to understand what people want, right? So the approach we're taking at Scale is essentially trying to find a middle ground that, you have users and users have transactions. And some of these transactions may be super important for users. For instance, you're playing a game for a year and suddenly you're getting this like super duper, game NFT sword that costs, billions, and you want to hold this sword or whatever other things. I don't play so much of these games, but anyway. But so there's some super valuable items. But there are some items which are not so valuable. You play a game, you go left, you go right, you open up a particular box. You don't really want this to go to Ethereum mainnet. So essentially, we need to provide people a choice. Do you want to have a fast interactive transaction and lots of them and like zero price? Or you want some of this transaction to pay for them, but then they go to Ethereum mainnet and then they become super secure. So that really comes from what people want, right? And basically, Scale, I think we're the first ones that actually taken this approach where we're saying, our chains are going to be kind of hybrid in the sense that, we do have lots of transactions, interactive fast transactions, and these chains are already alive. What we want to do is to enable people to move some of these transactions through the ZK number crunching. Then they will have to pay for them because they will be expensive. Not expensive, but there will be no zero price. This way, we cannot have the price zero for these transactions. And then give people the choice and then see how it goes. Essentially, we're going to give tools to Scale users to existing chains, which is also important. It's not going to be only new chains, but existing Scale chains, you will actually see this opportunity for some of the transactions to secure them with Ethereum mainnet. And then the developers will have a choice, and a simple choice, how to do it. And that's basically the essence of limitation protocol. That's actually, we think that where we are moving, and that's why we think it's the second generation, because it's more realistic. We're not saying that decay is going to boil the entire ocean. We're just saying that decay is going to boil half of the ocean. Right?
Totally.
So that's pretty much our idea. And then we are looking into different ZK projects and implementing them on Scale. We started with the ZK library from Polygon, Hermes, really great, the library, open source library. We started with that one. And then now there is also from Consensus, there's a really great thing which is called Linear. And the reason why we are super excited about Linear is that it's kind of the next generation ZK, where the proofs are less computationally intense. And it's super important for us if we want the users to pay less, right? To have super, as low as possible computationally, the computational resources. So we just got this really interesting kind of discussion with Linear about that. But these things, the ZK, are developing, we're basically building our plane as our friends are building their planes. So it's not like ZK is all like set in stone, they're just taking it and using it. They are building their stuff, we are building our stuff. It's all very dynamic, and it's a very complex thing. So we do need to take into account that it may take longer time for the application, for the library development. But we are really active in this. And I think what's going to happen with ZK is that 2024, probably like the second half of it, will be really the year of ZK, in a sense that the libraries are going to get ironed out, the performance. There are lots of hardware startups trying to add hardware acceleration to ZK. So it's a bit of a longer run project, I would say, but we're really excited to be in this space and contribute our things.
Definitely, it is really exciting. All the current options right now we have for ZK protocols are centralized. So Levitation protocol has a lot of advantages. It's decentralized. There's interoperability and modularity. So Levitation takes existing ZKRs into modules that interact with each other seamlessly. This is beyond me, but it's really fun to start to understand. And also, getting into the weeds of what Levitation protocol is really allows us as community members participating in SKALE to understand the magnitude of how important and transformative ZKs are for the blockchain. Another one is also common security is a big advantage of Levitation. Artem, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Any update on Levitation? When does it plan on going live?
You're asking me, right? We do have a prototype for Levitation running. As far as demoing it, it a little bit depends. I don't want to go into too much detail, but it also depends on the developers of the actual libraries for ZK. So we hope that this will happen by the end of this year. I think, as you mentioned, Zahraa, definitely, I didn't want to go too much into this, but one huge advantage of SKALE is decentralization of ZK. Because what happened, like first generation ZK, basically people were running clusters on their own centralized servers. So a typical ZK project would literally run their own number crunching themselves, which is actually not so bad because ZK actually in security does not get compromised because it's still verified on the mainnet. But what can get compromised is liveness. Essentially, liveness means that someone can shut it down, right? So the great thing about decentralization is that if ZK runs in a decentralized way, then if one node shuts down, others can do the work. And so we're using SKALE chains to provide the decentralization part. There is another startup, some of you guys know, the startup is called Espresso Systems, which is essentially taking a similar approach, using blockchain to decentralize the key. I think we will be much faster than that. The reason being, SKALE, we already have blockchains. We built our chain. We just need to add the ZK functionality to it. Espresso Systems, they're building the chain. So, but I think they're also doing a really great job. And this field, I think, definitely is going to move as far as decentralization is concerned into running ZK on blockchain. And lots of people are asking about it. Pretty much any project has it on their roadmap to decentralize. But it turns out not to be so easy to decentralize because, as you imagine, coordinating all of these decentralized pieces is not easy. And then I think using blockchain is the best, simplest way we know to coordinate things. So we bet on the fact that when ZK does get decentralized, it will be actually blockchain based.
Very cool. I'd love for us to spend more time discussing the enormity of Levitation protocol, but I do want to move into talking about SKALE being, fully open and decentralized. There's over 50 unique companies, businesses, organizations, and DAOs that support, run, and govern the SKALE network, along with thousands of active community members that are supporting the project in many ways, including open source code contribution. I'd love to be one of those community members who could contribute that, but we're here on the social side. We have a question from user Jokertown for you, Sawyer. I know you've been dealing with a lot of governance and proposals. So how does SKALE Network deal with governance and community participation? And how do SKALE token holders potentially influence the direction and decisions of the project?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic question. So I think you said something really key just a couple seconds ago about kind of the large amount of individuals and entities involved in SKALE Network. It's one of the things that makes it very decentralized, which is really key to governance, right? Governance, ideally, in any situation, should be something that not just one person or one entity is pushing forward, but everybody's pushing forward together to get the best result or to meet the goals. In this case, the goal is effectively sustainability, growth, and utilization of the SKALE network, right? Everybody that's building, validating, and contributing to this community has the same goal of using it to meet their goals, whether it's Reinhardt having users come play his game on a SKALE chain, or whether it's a validator running nodes because that's their business, right? Everybody has a goal that needs SKALE to continue to grow and evolve. Taking us into governance itself, so in June of this year, I was super fortunate to be one of the individuals working with this community to put together a proposal. It took many months, took a lot of people to kind of get consensus on what we wanted the governance to even look like. And so there's a whole post on the forum. You can also see it on Snapshot, which is where the official votes happen. But basically what governance looks like at a very high level is anybody that holds SKL tokens can effectively propose a vote. And then anybody that is a delegator, meaning you're staking SKL tokens to a validator, you have the ability to vote. And so what that means is simply by securing and helping support the network, you automatically get to participate in governance, which is a really important thing because there's no requirement on how many tokens you have to have. And so that means, if you can only attain one SKL token, your one SKL token could be the tipping point in a vote. And so that's really important from, once again, that kind of community perspective, making sure that everybody has the ability to push this forward. That takes us into kind of, where is the governance taking us as a community, right? Because obviously there's always some goal that as a collective we're trying to attain. In this case, the most recent one is scale chain pricing. And so scale chain pricing requires a little bit of background. So I hope everybody's okay. I'm going to give like a 30-second deep dive into one of the key unique pieces of scale and why this matters. Scale, as pretty much everybody knows, is a zero gas fee network, meaning every scale chain has zero gas fees. This is really important from an economic model because one of the ways that validators in a proof of stake network or miners in a proof of work network get incentivized is by gas fees. Every time a transaction occurs, they're usually getting a piece or in some cases the entire gas fee. It just depends on the network. If there's zero gas fees on scale, how do validators get incentivized? It's a question. That's where scale chain pricing comes into play. And so with how Scale's architected and set up, the community has the ability to basically say, instead of paying gas fees every time and having all this friction and these tough user experiences, we can say that a scale chain effectively is going to cost X, right? And that could be a dynamic number over time. Our current proposal has it being a little bit more hard-coded or set in stone at first, just to kind of kick things off, with the ultimate ideal that validators get incentivized by scale chain owners paying them, right? And so a really nice analogy here would be cloud computing. For those of you that don't know, most of the world runs on some form of cloud computing at this point, right? Every company is using servers and services from, AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, right? And a number of others that are all amazing services. In order for the developers to do that, every month or potentially a year or two in advance, they're paying or renting out these resources. That is what scale chain pricing is going to look like, or at least that's what our current proposal has kind of concluded to, is that developers and scale chain owners will effectively pay the validators using the SKL token to cover their their costs and their fees and incentivize them to validate the network and have this compute resource available. So that's kind of our governance, our community governance today, and that's also the big initiative that we're working toward together right now.
That's awesome. I mean, this is a bigger picture. This is amazing because you compare this to traditional governance in companies and institution. It involves decision-making process that's relatively centralized and permissioned. The SKALE network is an amazing Web3 technology. Like, while it initially developed by companies, it progressively becomes more decentralized with the growth of users and the stakeholder community. So it's so cool that, we're all contributing to this. So just within the hour, we've covered modularity, shared security, levitation, SDKs, and governance. I want to move on to another really cool feature of the SKALE network, which is called chain storage. SKALE enables dApps to store files locally on chain, which opens up a whole new world of Web3 use cases. You get full websites, applications, AI, ML, and this technology can integrate directly on chain. I have a question for you, D3. How does the SKALE network support on-chain file storage, and what are the use cases that benefit from this feature? This is actually a question from the community.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a really interesting part of the SKALE. It's a really interesting part of decentralized chain called file storage, and it's really interesting how it works inside. So, in fact, it's pretty simple, but at the same time, it has very deep infrastructure and architecture. You, as file storage, you upload the file like a bunch of transactions. So you convert your file to the transactions and just upload them on the S-chain like a bunch of transactions. But as we are got free, you can push as many files as you wish. You can upload pictures, videos, music, so a lot of cool things on the S-chains. And in fact, uploading by the transactions guarantees that the files has the same security as other transactions. They have the same mechanics as like, for example, transferring money or like calling contracts and so on. It's really interesting. We're just working with a file like with other things on the blockchain, but it's not money. It's about files. It's about a bunch of files. And for a better usage, also in SKALE, SKALE chain has a specific API for interacting with the file storage that allows you to download a file right from the file storage, right on the chain file storage. From end user, it will look like you're just loading the website or you are loading the pictures. So from end user, it's the same like with Web2, but the difference is that on Web2 is centralized, on S-chain it's decentralized. So it's really interesting, and there are a lot of interesting use cases. I think Sir can add the use cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I heard my name and I heard mention some use cases around file storage. You want me to jump into that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. So I think, I think just kind of the general file storage opens up a lot of different doors that people can kind of play with. One of the most unique ones that I think we've seen recently is this idea that you can actually host a website on SKALE file storage. So actually the Europa Hub website for the Europa Liquidity Hub is actually hosted on SKALE file storage on the Europa chain. That's a pretty cool one. Additionally, we see a lot of projects looking to use it for their NFT information, right? Whether it's the graphics or the metadata, that's a pretty nice one as just a nice alternative to IPFS that's directly built into the chain. Additionally, there's kind of anything that you can use general file storage for, right? That is okay being public is really a use case here. Obviously, things that shouldn't be shared publicly are maybe not a good use case for this, but anything that is public information, whether it's proves large pieces of data, Maybe you're trying to get public training data for an LLM, and you can fit that into Scale file storage. There you go. So I would say it's pretty general, pretty broad. But D3 did a fantastic job making it very flexible for developers to utilize.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Just to add a couple of words, you can interact with file storage from browser as a web tool, but also from smart contracts via just some transaction or call it to another smart contract. So it's available for browsers and it's available for other smart contracts. So it's pretty useful. Yeah.
Exciting. It's amazing we have the capacity to store things on a blockchain. With the last 15 minutes that we have, I want to go through rapid fire questions. I'll call out your name and let you know. These are all questions that were submitted by the community. Coming onto this AMA, I had concerns. I was like, this is going to be very heavy technical engineering content. I myself could fall asleep through these sort of conversations, but it's been very exciting. And also, interestingly, every time you guys go into a really heavy engineering topic, our viewer audience jumps up by 20, 30 at a time. So I love to see that the community is really interested in the technicalities of Scale. Really exciting. So let's get into the rapid fire. Artem, how does Scale Network use the random node selection algorithm to assign validator nodes to Scale chains?
Yes, thank you. Basically, this algorithm is running on smart contracts on Ethereum. Every time you create a Scale chain or running a node rotation, the random node selection algorithm is running. Basically, if you are looking into the node, each node is divided by 128 pieces. And actually, this algorithm is picking up the part of these pieces. And it was a very interesting story how we created this algorithm, because initially, due to the growth of the network in terms of adding the new nodes, the algorithm is linear and it would take a lot of gas fees while you're adding the new nodes. But then we come up to the idea to create a segment tree, and instead of running it through the node, but running it through the pieces, it starts working much faster because of we separated this pieces layer, and it's currently running pretty stable and faster and very optimized on the Ethereum side.
Okay, very interesting. Hopefully on another AMA we can dive deeper into the node selection and how that operates on Scale Network, because we did have a lot of community input on that and questions around it. Sawyer, a user asks, if I use Metaport for token transfers, do I need to select a specific chain like Nebula Chain 1, Nebula Chain 2, or are they combined to appear as a single chain?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So the answer is right now they are separate chains, right? So Metaport is built around kind of the existing Web3 infrastructure. So for a lot of you, you're probably familiar with MetaMask, right? With MetaMask, whenever you select a chain within the wallet, when you go to a dApp and you connect, it's usually either going to leave you on that chain or it's going to automatically prompt you to switch to a new chain. In this case, when you switch to a dApp that's integrated Metaport, what will happen is inside the Metaport widget, there will be a list of Scale chains that have tokens that can be moved between the various Scale chains or over to Ethereum. When you select one of those chains, MetaMask will automatically, or the other wallets you're using, would automatically prompt you to switch to the chain that you want to send from. And then when you select the chain you want to bridge to, that would just automatically kind of make things happen in the back end. So to kind of simplify that, the answer is yes. You need to select which chain you want to go from. However, it is a very, very invisible kind of flow of how Metaport is built. And so, for example, if you're bridging between, Nebula and Ethereum, it will automatically handle the selection and prompt you to switch to Europa in the middle, as it kind of does that multiple hops throughout the Scale ecosystem.
Okay, very cool. Artem, you're on the spot again. If there is a sudden massive increase in transactions, for example, on the Nebula chain, how quickly can a new chain be deployed?
Great question. It actually was one of the main goals for SKALE core team to create a very automated and very fast way to create a new SKALE chain. So basically, from the start to the end, it will take up to 15 minutes to create a SKALE chain, because like every SKALE chain is created by transaction in Ethereum. So if when community would request a new Nebula, technically we can create it in 15 minutes.
Okay, love it. Stan, can you list 3 killer features of SKALE that make it ahead of competitors?
Yeah, basically, I think like there are 3 features: zero transaction fees, zero transaction fees, zero transaction fees. I think I just want to come from a different perspective a little bit. Just talk a little bit about human psychology. I think what people don't realize is that users are actually human. They're not like mathematical entities or computer science, bots, whatever. And in human psychology, it's very well known that if you like lower the price, at some point it stops helping, because there is a mental price of a person making decision. Like if I buy something, essentially I spend mental energy of it. And so if you are selling me a can of Pepsi for $1, and if you like drop it to 10 cents, it's actually not going to help so much, because I'm spending mental energy on this. So because of that, what we think, and it's kind of, I think our belief is getting even stronger. That probably, I think we can make it like a radical statement. I think Web3 is not going to happen without zero fees, in a sense that you don't see people, if you are like in a subway, you see people playing games. You don't see them playing Web3 games, right? If you want people to use blockchain, the only way for lots of people to do it is to have zero fees. I think, and I think it's going to be proven in the future. Because if in a web browser you would pay for every click, no one would actually use internet, right? So I think that what we're going to see is that if Web3 is actually going to happen on a massive scale, it's only going to happen with zero fees. And that's why I think we actually believe that that's the thing that actually is going to make it happen.
That's awesome. The zero transaction fees are very attractive to both developers and end users. So essentially, I mean, this was an amazing AMA to have with you guys. What we got out of this is, by utilizing SKALE, dApps can operate on a high performance dedicated blockchain network. And it's very specifically tailored to the dApps. Sawyer mentioned with the SDKs and the surrounding ecosystem. The developers that are building on SKALE don't have to stress about gas fees, nor does the end user, and they'll be able to maintain seamless connectivity to Ethereum mainnet. It almost sounds unreal, but it's amazing, that these amazing minds are all coming together to build SKALE. I wanted to thank the awesome devs, Reinhardt with the amazing Untitled platformer that consistently is ranking in on dApp Radar. Everyone's playing it, so if you haven't, definitely check it out. Sawyer, I like to call you the SDK wizard. It's a new name. We have Artem and D3. I appreciate you guys from coming, and especially Stan, the visionary SKALE founder. This was very exciting, and I look forward to hosting another engineering update with all.
Thank you, Zahraa.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.